formally welcome everybody to our State of the Industry series. Career Services is hosting once a week a State of the Industry panel with industry professionals to help students and alumni, faculty, and staff understand what's happening in different industries. And so we have a wonderful panel that we've put together today. I will let them introduce themselves with their background and a little bit about their roles and responsibilities. Otherwise, you know, as they're going through that, I'll also put those in the chat box because I know sometimes it can be hard to, you know, to feel like you're writing them down or something. So if you want to connect with them afterward, I'll also put their names and their titles in the chat box. So Patrick, would you like to go first and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Patrick Mahonik. Currently the high school principal, but transitioning into a new role as the Director of Secondary Education at Newfield, taking on the middle school as well as the high school as we go through some transitions. A little bit about my background. I began my education career as a middle school English and social studies teacher in North Carolina. Moved back to New York and became a GED teacher for the New York State Department of Corrections. Moved on from that and became an alternative education junior high social studies teacher. After about 10 years of that, I wanted to get into administration, so I became an intern and an assistant principal for a brand new program in Syracuse called the Career Academy. Did that for about 5 years. And then we opened up, I was selected to be the principal to open up Innovation Tech, the first PBL, completely PBL interdisciplinary school in central New York. The only other one in the state was in Albany. And after a couple of years of that, I decided I wanted to get back to traditional education. So I became the principal at Dryden High School, was there for a couple of years, and then ended up here in beautiful Newfield. And, you know, just enjoying life and enjoying a great community and a great culture and a great faculty and staff and an okay school board.
There's one of the people that works in career services as part of the school board, Jennifer Powell, so she's on this call. Nice, thank you. Jermaine, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hello, good morning, everyone. So my name is Jermaine Coleman. I'm a talent recruitment associate with Excellence Community Schools. And basically, I do a lot of the recruiting here. I go to lots of job fairs. You know, currently in the advent of the COVID crisis, kind of doing a lot of virtual fairs over the last 2 months. So, you know, pretty much, you know, we hire lots of teachers, you know, transitional teachers, classroom teachers. We're pretty much looking for special ed teachers as well. Teaching assistants, and traditionally, like, we hire lots of teachers that are currently New York State certified or on a pathway to becoming certified. In my career, you know, I've been in HR for many years, and I pretty much have like a legal background in HR, as well as I've been in the social service industry, and I'm fairly new to the education industry, but, you know, definitely learning lots and lots as I go along. So I'm really happy to be here today, and thank you for having me.
Sure, glad to have you. How about Ben?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me today. So I'm a high school special education teacher in East Harlem. Someone's ringing. Again, I'm a special education teacher at a high school, at Dream Charter High School in East Harlem, and I also serve as the high school special education coordinator. So I wear multiple hats. So this is my 6th year total in education. I did an AmeriCorps year, and then I got into full-time teaching. So this is my wrapping up my 5th year.
Okay, thanks. And Dave?
Good morning. Buenos dias, everybody. My name is Dr. David Santillanes, and I'm the teacher recruiter for the Cartwright School District in Phoenix, Arizona. We're the 2nd largest elementary school district in the state of Arizona. My background is a bachelor's degree in secondary ed, master's degree from Central Michigan, University in Community School Leadership and my doctorate in Educational Administration and Supervision from Arizona State University in 1973, 47 years ago. So, so it's no longer a novelty. But I have been a high school principal, an elementary school principal, assistant superintendent for HR, and I've been a superintendent, the first Hispanic superintendent in the Glendale Elementary School District. I also served 11 years as an associate professor of education in the Department of Curriculum and Instruction at the University of Oregon in Eugene, Oregon, where I ran a very large research center. In fact, the largest research and development center in the United States in the field of community education. For the last 20 years, I retired in 1998. I've been in education 52 years. And in 1998, I retired. And in the year 2000, the Cartwright District was having a real hard time finding teachers. So they asked me for my assistance. I helped them, and then they created a job. I work 110 days out of the year. I don't want to work full time. And all I do is fly all over the country to about 40 some odd job fairs each year and recruit all the teachers for the Cartwright District. We currently have teachers from over 200 different universities and colleges all over the country. And I've recruited a lot and maintained a lot out of the state of New York, as well as Illinois and everywhere else. I am bilingual, and the times that I'm not working, recruiting and hiring teachers, I just read and write a little poetry.
Love it. Thank you all for the introductions. They're helpful. So diving in here, some of you may have heard me say this in the beginning, but we received a bunch of questions via email. And so I had some prepared. So I'm going to try to move a little bit quickly through my prepared questions to give a little bit of context of the differences between your work environments and what's happened. And then I'll get as quickly as I can to some of the ones that were submitted also. So I'm wondering if people can talk a little bit about, and maybe anything unique to your school or to your district about, oh, I'm sorry. Melanie, you can go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Melanie Farah, and I'm the Senior Director of Talent and Human Resources for Excellence Community Schools. Jermaine is a member of my team, and we work to support schools in the Bronx for the School for Excellence Network in the Bronx, where we have 5 schools, and at our Stanford Charter School for Excellence Network, where we have our flagship school in Connecticut, and we will continue to grow in Connecticut. So we're excited to introduce opportunities across 2 states in the pre-K to 6 landscape in Connecticut and in the K to 8 landscape in New York. And we are not only recruiting lead classroom teachers, but we're also looking for operation staff who are willing to commit to our organization and are dedicated and understand that the work that they do impact our scholars just as much as the classroom teacher in the front of the room. I have been with the organization since 2016 and went back to school some years ago to get my master's in educational leadership, because it was important for me as a person who's recruiting talent to understand the experiences and the process of teachers prior to leading students. And we're just really happy to be here. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Yeah, thanks for using the chat box to alert me. I appreciate that. So moving along in terms of, thinking about the pandemic, right? We're all thinking about that, at least as one of the things that's happening right now. Wondering what's happening with your school or your district that's changed, of course, right? Like some of the things we know. But if there's anything that you anticipate that might be more of a permanent change, or anything that you would think would be helpful for students to know or recent grads to know. We could start with Patrick, and feel free, if anybody doesn't feel like they have anything to say, just say skip me for this one and I'll move on.
I think the biggest change that would impact future educators and hiring is the budget implications of this. I know in Newfield, we just cut $1.4 million out of our budget through attrition. Um, and, you know, what the governor's saying that he's looking at possibly reducing education aid by 20%, districts are going to be looking for to streamline and to get more out of each teacher that they hire. You know, it's always nice when you have dual certifications like, you know, social studies and special education because you can be used in multiple roles. That's always a nice thing to have. I don't know where the certifications are of people in the room. But the other thing is, you know, special education teachers are, you know, they're a hot commodity. But the way the state has split it up, so it's K-6 and then 7-12, it would also be nice to have someone that's K through 12 certified like they used to. So I think just the more marketable you can make yourself at this time and the more hats you can wear, I think that's going to be a trend for the near future at least.
This is Dave Santianes. We've already made a decision approved by the governing board that as of for the fall semester, which really starts for us on the 3rd of August, we're going to be going 4 days on, 1 day off. And the 1 day off is going to be for deep cleaning of classrooms and school facilities. And during that day, then teachers are going to be involved in working with kids in terms of distance learning, electronic learning, as well as participating in staff development. So our schedule will be Monday through Thursday. It'll be Monday through Thursday, and then with Friday, the kids don't come to school. But the teachers do work, like I said, in distance learning, and the maintenance folks deep clean the school and the classroom. So we already see a change in that. We've been doing distance learning since March, and along with educational packets and what have you, but the governor said that the schools are opening up, so we're preparing with that 4 1-day schedule.
Thank you. Jermaine or Melanie, would you like to add anything for your area?
I'm so sorry, I was still on mute. In and of itself, we've really, we as an organization feel like we've really used this opportunity to ascertain how well students can grow and succeed via distance learning. So we've taken the time to refine the model so that although we do plan for an opening in the fall, if there is a change or if there are concerns arise around new and emerging challenges in regards to student health, we are prepared to move forward from day one, whether it be on-site or off-site. So we actually have, we have 2 parallel plans moving forward, and we are prepared to either move forward with a distance learning model or with an on-site model. I think we are really excited to share that we figured out how to continue to move the needle toward progress using a distance learning model. And we are reflecting on how that can be strengthened. You know, the gains that children receive weren't necessarily comparable to on-site and in classroom. So it's figuring out how to close that gap to continue to support students through their growth.
Mm-hmm.
I've been very similar with what Melanie said. A lot of that resonated with me. And I think that what's been interesting about this time, and it's been quite challenging, particularly since I'm in New York City and East Harlem. I know Melanie said that her school is in the South Bronx. This was one of the 2 areas that has been hit the hardest in the United States and in the world. And so I saw that my role shifted dramatically as a special education teacher, but also just being an outreach, like a social worker in a way, having to really check in with parents and families, seeing how they're doing emotionally. We haven't had to do that as much. And now, since we've gone remote, it's really important that we leverage those relationships with families and to support families who we didn't know had Wi-Fi issues or didn't have, food, or, they had family members who caught COVID. This has really transitioned us to think about how we're serving students and what models will work when we do return. What's been really fascinating for me is that I've had students who were, when they were in the classroom, feel a lot of anxiety and being scared to express themselves, but the transition to actually being remote has given them a lot of confidence, particularly with my students with disabilities, to kind of speak freely without the anxiety. And I'm excited to return to see like where those models worked and how I can duplicate that for other students to feel that same success. And I'm hopeful we will return, though it will be in a hybrid forum as well.
Can I add one more thing? This is Dave Santanis. One of the things, an implication for educators or individual teacher candidates is the need for flexibility. But, teachers historically have had to be flexible. So I think it kind of plays into the hands of teachers in terms of the area of flexibility. They've had to be flexible, and they've had to judge situations and individual students in such a way, and then make the modifications and adaptations necessary to meet their needs. So I don't think it's that big of an adjustment, with the exception of the fact that they need to engage in electronic or distance learning.
Yeah, this topic is conveniently transitioning me to my next question. I love when that happens. So one of the questions that came in from a student for the panel in advance was, what might help a future teacher prepare for a post-COVID-19 world of teaching? So thinking about technologies, resources, or experiences they could be gaining, while they're in this kind of preparatory phase. Ben, since you talked about some additions that had sort of come onto your role a little bit naturally, would you like to start?
Yeah, I can kind of walk us through that. So I think one thing that I wasn't prepared for in this transition was just thinking about in two sets, because I'm a teacher, but I'm also a special ed coordinator. And I'm thinking about where in just the compliance part of things can I revamp our special education department to be more in compliance and in tune with student needs. I didn't realize that we were actually unprepared to give students modifications and accommodations remotely. And that actually had a lot of implications with students as well. We found that students were less engaged when teachers weren't prepared how to actually, reach out to students and meet in small groups to give them those accommodations, as well as provider services. And I think one thing that struck me by this is that related services, speech and language therapists, occupational therapists, counselors matter when we went remote and we didn't have a plan and we didn't even think about how are we going to integrate these folks who play an integral role with special education services. How are we going to get them to also be a part of it? But then when just thinking about my own experience, like I didn't realize that how much I would, one, miss being around students every day. I know like in the moment, I have like gray hairs every day. It really like pushes you to your limit, and that's not going to change no matter how many years of teaching you do. But I didn't realize just with this experience how much I actually appreciate being there and what it actually means to be an educator in the 21st century with technology. And that it's more than just being in the classroom. It's actually what you do outside of it really can make an impact, and what matters of how we can move kids to become ready for the world.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, the technology piece, I think a lot of us are learning. We were not a one-to-one school prior to this, so we've been out and delivered, I think, like 65 laptops to kids that didn't have access to technology. We're a small rural district, and so our teachers haven't really, embraced technology in the form that they are. So my best advice is embrace technology, because it's not going away. We're actually going to one-to-one at the high school next year, so we'll be prepared if anything like this ever happens again. But I think the one thing that's going to come out of this whole pandemic is the way we teach is going to change, even with kids in the classroom. We can't limit the use of technology anymore. And I think people that may have been resistant to it are now fully embracing it because they didn't have a choice. So not just putting a computer in a kid's hand or a teacher's hand, but, learn how to use the technology, what platforms are out there. We're the last district in our region to become a Google school, and we're going to make that happen next year. We're doing level 1 certifications for our teacher trainings this summer. So that's the platform that, at least in our area, every district is using. It's very easy to use. It's kid friendly, teacher friendly. So become familiar with those things, and just out of the box thinking of teaching is probably going to be the best advice. Project-based learning, it's just a different world that we're going to live in when we get back.
This is Dave. The last 20 years or so, I've seen a real growth in the responsibility of teachers. They've taken on additional roles, as one other individual in the panel mentioned. They're not just teachers. They're nurturers. They are supporters. They listen to kids. They teach the whole child. They're concerned with what's going on at home, what's going on in society. We're one-to-one in our district, fortunately, so we had the electronic part of that. The other fortunate thing in our district is that we're the only district in the state of Arizona that provides free breakfast, free dinner, and free lunch and free dinner. Dinners from 3:30 to 5:30. So we've been feeding the kids all summer and throughout the pandemic. But teachers are getting more involved in that, and they're accepting new roles or expanded roles in working with the total child.
Thank you. Yeah, Jermaine or Melanie, in terms of, even postings that are up right now, if there's anything like added to descriptions or anything you're looking for that might be different than it was?
So there's a lot of the communications we have about the changes or the shift that we're seeking. It's done verbally, and it's not been added to job descriptions as of yet, because we realize how in flux things are. We are communicating to candidates that we're interviewing how important it is for them to be flexible, how important it is for them to understand that we don't want to commit them to X and then they have to fulfill Y. We really want them to know that when you're joining our team moving forward, communication is going to be the linchpin of your success and ours. So the bigger push has been making sure that we are as responsive to them as they are to us, and communicating to them how important communication is. And I can't stress that enough. We also know that things are changing so quickly. We don't want to commit to something that we find out won't work in 2 months. So what we've done to maintain flexibility is leave our model as it stands in terms of positions, leave the framework, not the model, leave the framework as it stands, and make sure that we communicate how things are going at a particular campus that they would be interested in working at, and do our best to make sure that they understand that this is how it is for right now. And we are going to work to keep up with all of the changes that impact our scholars and support you through those changes.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to move into the questions that were submitted to me via email. This should be, well, maybe a relatively quick one. In terms of your school districts or schools, where are your job postings listed?
So ours is at wearedream.org. You can find it I can put the link in here as well, but you can go into the career section and you'll see what we're hiring for. So I know in the high school right now, we're looking for a science learning specialist or somebody who has a special education background in science and in ELA. And if you do, you will work closely with me as I'll be helping you write IEPs and implementing all the great things that come with special education. And it's a great place to work.
Go ahead.
Similarly, our postings are located at Excellence Community Schools, that's plural, .org/careers. I've also placed the link in the chat box. And we are actually looking for what are called living environment teachers who support our K-4 classrooms in science. And we are also looking for, learning specialists who act similarly to special education coordinators. But our learning specialists are not just special education coordinators. They work to pop into classrooms and support our teachers with their development and their growth and model so that our students are on a smoother pathway to success. And so those positions, among others, are located at the link in the chat box.
Our positions are listed in our website, C as in cat, S as in Sam, D as in David, 83.org, CSD83.org. And right now our needs are in middle school math and science, special ed, and we have need for 2 instrumental music teachers. A few years ago, music teachers were a dime a dozen. Now they're hard to find. And so those are our needs right now. And, we have 950 teachers. So we're doing okay in terms of staffing, but those hard to fill positions of math, science, special ed, I'm sure are to be found across the country. Everybody has those needs. Thank you.
And we post on our website, newfieldschools.org, as well as olasjobs.org. That's the statewide website for us. Currently, we're looking for a special ed teacher and potentially a technology teacher. And we're always looking for daily subs, and we could use you daily. We have subs in here every day. It's just because it's a small rural area and there's not a lot of certified teachers. So if you're looking to just get your foot in the water, that would be a great way to go. It's an amazing district. It's a very supportive staff, community. I've been in a few districts, and it's by far the best district that I've ever worked for and worked in. So.
And if I can vouch for that, I was a graduate of Newfield. I went to Newfield Elementary, middle school, high school. It is a wonderful small town and just really incredibly caring teachers. Still to this day, Giffler and Steinworth,
Yep.
Polowitz, Jennifer's husband, really great mentors to me. So.
Yeah, and I actually drive an hour to work every day just because of the community and the faculty and staff here. So if you're looking for a daily sub position or a special elementary special ed position, possibly a tech position, this is a great place to go.
That's awesome. So just a specific question that came through, someone who sounds like is searching right now, they're looking for math positions grades 7 to 12, and they're not seeing very many currently posted. So they're wondering if this might be something with the pandemic, if there might be a wave this summer, sort of to talk about a cycle of sorts, or if something they feel like is missing from their search. Any thoughts?
If she's willing to relocate to Arizona, we have 4 middle school math positions open right now?
I would say go to, it depends like where you want to work. If you want to work in a full public school, if you're looking to work in New York City, like NYC DOE, always looking for math teachers. If you're looking to work in an independent school, a private school, nysais.org always lists math positions there as well, and other teaching roles. And then if you're looking just for what's out there in the the charter school world, I know Idealist and Indeed always are always posting jobs there.
I will say also, if you hold a 7 to 12 certification and you're looking in New York, don't be afraid to look at middle school, 6th grade. Making sure that you're comfortable with that shift, because I know there are some teachers who prefer to stay with 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. But the flexibility of looking to support a 6th grade class could really help open up additional opportunities. I do know with the pandemic, there are a lot of teachers who may have in the past said, I've been with this school for quite some time. I'd like to move on to another school for a different model, a different landscape. They're not transitioning. So that's also going to impact the availability of positions. People right now they want to stay where they are, where they know, so that they have an idea what the future will hold for the next year.
Yeah, and as I mentioned before, I just put it in the chat box too. olasjobs.org has got the entire New York State broken into regions, and you can search by certification areas. I just typed in math for Central New York, and there's 6 positions opened. I think you're also going to see a little slowdown in hiring until we kind of figure out what's going on. I think they're hiring immediate needs right now, but they're also looking at funding, and I think you may see another spurt of hiring come maybe mid-July, August, once the governor kind of opens us up and clears the way.
That's awesome. Really good feedback. I'm sure that was helpful. Thank you all. Okay, another question that has come in. And any thoughts or resources? I'm happy to have anything that, that anybody can share. This person is wondering, how can a future teacher prepare to teach in an anti-racist way? Specifically, any educational opportunities, resources, advice, any thoughts?
Yeah.
I love this question. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
All right. So this is actually, I think, one of the most important questions that we have to face and ask ourselves as educators is, particularly myself as a white educator in a school that's predominantly that serves Black and brown youth. How do I show up, right? Is a really important question. And myself as an educator, we are actually, right after I get off of this call, I'm actually going to, our network is doing anti-racist, talks, and I'm going to be meeting with the other white teachers in our district, in our school, and we're actually going to be discussing plans that we ourselves can commit to and discuss our own racial biases and how we show up to spaces, and particularly to spaces of color, and making commitments to our students as well. And I don't have any resources, but I think it begins with just doing a little bit of reflection on yourself and who you are, where you come from, and identifying and being honest how your white fragility shows up in the classroom, how white privileges show up, and then I think from there, once you can really take that leap of faith, then I think that will lead you to resources such as How to Be an Anti-Racist by Kendi, and other readings that come with that. But I'm still learning, and I'm excited to take this next step.
Our district does workshops on cultural diversity. 90% of our kids are Latinos. We got 2% African American, 1% Native American, 1% Asian, 6% only white. The approach that we take, and even if we didn't take it, it's just built into my philosophy, the way I view the world, because I didn't learn how to speak English till I was 8 years of age. But we need to look at diversity, particularly cultural diversity, as a strength, not a weakness. We need to accept individuals and the experiences that they bring to us and bring them and weave them into the total classroom as a teacher. And again, and focus in on the strength of the students. When you focus in on strength, that's a stronger foundation from which you can address any perceived weaknesses that a student may have. But when you value a person's culture and you ask them questions about food, about the history, about clothing, about celebrations, holidays, and things like that, you're showing an interest in that student. And I think other students also gain from that by learning another person's culture. But it's best to listen to the kids and ask them key questions about themselves so you learn more about them. And as you learn about them, you are in fact going to be more culturally sensitive to their needs and what they bring to the classroom and what they need.
Yeah, and there's a great resource is tolerance.org. It's got a lot of resources for, stuff you can use in the classroom, a lot of great articles, a lot of text for kids. It's something I've been looking at a lot. The other best piece of advice I could give you is when you get your job, drive around your district. When you look at education, the majority of teachers are, especially at the secondary level, white males. In the elementary, it's white females. And they're all mostly middle class. So we come in teaching with that mindset, and we don't know what it's like to not know what's for dinner tonight, and that's what our kids are facing. So when you drive through these neighborhoods and you see what they're going home to, and you get a better understanding, and then you can meet them at that level. And fare is not always the same, so you got to figure that out. That's the best piece of advice I could give you is, drive around the district. Even if you're thinking about going there, know where your kids are coming from. Go to the best parts and go to the worst parts, and you'll get a great view of what you're going to be dealing with.
From our perspective, we're an organization that is really reflective of the community we serve. And so it's an interesting question from all sides. We first ask of everyone who is a member of our community is to understand that individually, although they are part of an organization, they are also individually leaders. And as such, they should carry the responsibility of educating themselves and not bring that education to learn on the parents or to learn on their colleagues. It's really important that self-work is done to truly work to be anti-racist. And what does that mean? That means taking the initiative to read and research and learn as much as you can about communities that you are not a part of, and take back the understanding that the communities that you're not a part of every day have gone to school to read and learn about the community that is most represented in the United States. So you taking that time to learn more about the community that you're going to serve is only fair and is only an entree to the work that you'll need to do to be actively anti-racist. It is not just driving through a community, but it's also working to understand that community. Do you know what the structure looks like? Do you have the opportunity to volunteer, to learn more about your neighborhood? And if you don't have those resources, what are the resources that the school has that's available? And so structurally, it's also making sure that your administrators are supporting you in your work. Or do they have webinars, and do they have workshops, and do they have resources that they can point you to? It's not just the work you're doing as an individual, but you're pushing up and you're asking the leaders who are there to support you, what more can I do? And making sure that you are in a comfortable enough space to ask those questions and to ask for that support. I did share just a book that I'm very familiar with, and a study that was that's been talked about over and over again about implicit bias and how it starts as early as preschool. And it's a pretty well-known study, but it was actually recently covered by NPR, so I also shared that link. But those two places are really easy entrees into the work that everyone needs to do to move our communities forward and to support our students and to make the world a more just and equitable place.
Yes, thank you all so much. So I would encourage everybody to check out those resources. I can send, when I send the recording of this, I can make sure I send everything basically that was in the chat box as well. So you'll have access to those also. And, you know, I guess my piece of advice even from a higher ed standpoint is to truly keep the conversation moving and going, right? It's, you know, right now is a time, right? But, you know, 4 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, we really have to make sure we're still having these conversations. Okay. So let's see here. There's 2 more questions that are submitted, and then we'll get to some live questions. One is, what would be your thoughts or recommendations about someone who has been away for a long time from this field, but returning as a substitute? I think they're looking for some advice on, you know, is a substitute sort of that first way in? Would you recommend that being the route that they should go? And if I've misinterpreted the question, the person's on this call, feel free to let me know.
Just a quick suggestion. If you've been away from the field of education for a while and you're trying to come back in as a substitute teacher, one of the first things I would suggest you do is to talk to teachers, to talk to grade level representatives, to talk to mentors if the school has a mentor, and to ask them questions about, you know, things that you've done in the past. How relevant are they? The best approach to working with kids, and listen to them. And in fact, if you could, ask if you could come in and observe a teacher or two for a day or so in order to become more comfortable in that setting before you accept the responsibility of the classroom, whether it be in a substitute situation or a salaried situation. Just a thought.
Yeah, I think, you know, being a daily sub is a great way to get your foot in the door. I can tell you, when I have, you know, people just out of college subbing here at any high school, I spend an awful lot of time in those classrooms, not because I'm looking to find something wrong. It's basically an interview every day. It's a great way to get your foot in the door. So when that job opening comes, you could say, okay, I've seen this person in action. You know, it's a good fit. It's a right fit for the kids. It's a right fit for this individual. So I think that's the best way to get in.
Yeah, I also think it's about, it's particularly if you've been away from education for a while and you're trying to get your foot in the door, just trying to see different school districts and how schools operate and finding the best fit. I think the biggest thing, whether you've been away from education for a while or, you know, you've been in it, right, is the support system and the staff and how the community operates and who you can rely on in that school to, you know, help you along the way. So I would say stay away from maybe schools that don't really have that support system, and ensuring that if you are trying to get back in, you know, I don't know if you substitute teaching. I know there's teaching assistant roles as well, but just making sure that there's a support system in place for you to like, okay, I'm going to take the next step again into a, a full-time capacity.
Thank you. Yes. And there in the chat box, Pamela did say she's been in the field, or they've said they've been in the field, but not the classroom, and just considering all angles to pivot, which I do think there's a lot of people in this boat, whether it's that something has already happened or preparing. One other question that came in, let me get back to it here. Is thinking about graduate schools. So someone asked if you all believe that the ranking of the graduate school matters in terms of hiring, or what other things maybe in that respect that you are paying attention to or not paying attention to.
Okay. I think for me, I'm going to say it depends on the school or the network. For us, it really is more about the strength of the program and our level of familiarity with each school's program. There are some schools that may not be ranked nationally as well as we know that they've produced excellent educators for our schools. So we have partnerships with smaller private colleges. We have a strong partnership with Monroe College. We have a partnership with NYU, with Fordham, and it's been really great to see. It's been really great to have a connection with someone who's interested in remaining local, and who is from the area, gone to a graduate school in their area, and didn't necessarily put the rank of that school first. More so, how can I stay immersed in the community, because I know that will benefit me as I go on to teach children who've been a part of this community. I won't say it doesn't matter, but I would definitely look for a program that has a strength in the area that you'd like to teach. If you're going to be a person focused on special education, if 7 through 12 is your strength, making sure that you have a program that can support you in early childhood, making sure that you have a program that can support you along that vein, I believe is more important than the ranking. But I feel like Ben had something exciting, interesting to say about it.
No, it's so great to hear you say that, because I actually, when I was applying to graduate school, I applied to 2 places. I applied to TC, which is Teachers College at Columbia, and then I applied to Hunter College. Didn't get into, then I applied to Brooklyn College as well. Didn't get into TC, and I just went into it blindly. Turns out, so I got into Hunter. I decided to go there. I got my master's a couple of years ago. I didn't even look at the rankings. I just realized they told me this is one of the best special education programs in the state. I was like, dang, really? I didn't even know. I had no idea. So I wasn't looking at rankings. What I was looking for was just, does the university have some sort of recognition? Is it affordable? Right? That is something that I was looking for. And I'm looking for something that was a hands-on experience. And I think that was something I really valued. And Hunter College was able to actually offer me that hands-on training with, we had Learning Lab, which was an extensive, comprehensive clinical program where I actually had to work on creating psycho-ed evals and IEPs and doing all these diagnostic testing. And I really enjoyed that, but I wouldn't say I was looking for ranking, more so what kind of program I was looking forward to having. And I'm thankful I chose Hunter.
We don't hire graduate schools, we hire teachers. And so it doesn't matter where you get your degree as far as I'm concerned. It's what you learned from that degree, from that graduate program, and how you can apply it in a school setting. So don't get hung up with the rankings of schools, because I've seen individuals who've graduated from some of the best graduate programs in the country and who were not very good teachers. I've seen small college teachers, because they internalized the program and the instructional strategies that were being taught to them, who were great teachers. So don't get hung up on it. As a recruiter for the last 20 years, the place where you got your degree does not matter to me. It's what you got out of that degree.
Yes, and while you were talking, we received a lot of claps, a lot of virtual like thumbs up. Everybody was supporting. Everybody was supporting. I know you can't see it, so I figured I'd tell you. Okay, so we can open it up to any live questions. If anybody wants to turn their video and sound on to ask the question, introduce yourself, or in the chat box. This is the time, so feel free.
I had a question, if it's okay. So for me, I'm looking to go into the more school counselor role as opposed to being a teacher specifically. And I know that those opportunities are a little bit more sparse than I would say the former is. Do you have any advice for me in terms of looking for ways to get information, in terms of finding schools after I graduate? I'm a senior right now, actually, and I'm looking to go to graduate school, but I wasn't exactly sure what the next step would be. And I know that like there are always changes in schools where sometimes the counselor is kind of like the first line in terms of like budget issues and stuff like that. I was wondering if you had any advice for me that way.
I would just say, as far as budgets go, every student has to have access to a counselor in New York State, so we cannot just cut all the counselors. So that's a good thing to have. If you can join like a online counseling organization, they have a bunch of groups, listservs that you don't have to be a certified counselor to join, but you'll have access to counselors and you can get advice, and they'll put jobs out on there as well.
On my end, I would say get connected to a school community sooner rather than later. If you're interested in working with a school in the future, or you have the opportunity to volunteer and work in school while you're completing your degree, I would seize that opportunity, because the other thing that a lot of schools are looking for, I know we are looking for, are just people who have a demonstrated comfort level being around students, and some history that we can look back on to talk about their experiences, so that we have an understanding of the work that they've been doing while they're obtaining their degree. So we've definitely hired counselors who it's their first time working in a school, but I will say they've had a history of being a director of an after-school program, or worked in other care centers supporting supporting a student population, so that they have an understanding of what the interaction with parents is like. That's really helpful to understand the student-parent dynamic that you'll be coming into as a counselor. So any opportunity to put yourself in those situations before you graduate, I believe, will make you even more of an ideal candidate.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would also say that, schools are always looking for volunteers to tutor after school. So you get to know the kids. Not that you're going to go into the academic side of, well, you are going to go in the academic side of it, just in a different role. And again, maybe a daily substitute position, because then you're going to see what kids go through, what teachers go through, because those are the two populations you would be supporting.
Great. Thank you so much. Good question, Jordan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Another question came through in the chat. Willa is looking for a position in New York City, and so wondering if you all may know of any that are hiring specifically for voice and modern band, or where maybe some good places to look might be.
Ironically, there is a charter school, specifically that aligns with like a music curriculum. It's called Voice Charter School. So you could actually look and see like if there are any music positions there. So you could go to the website, you just type in Voice Charter. But again, I think I don't know of any music positions in our school. We're still an expanding school, and we don't offer a music program, unfortunately. But I will say, again, I think if you look at, NYSAIS.org, Indeed or Idealist, those would be great resources as well. And I know Melanie just put in a website as well. And I'll put my websites that I just said in there.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. So I'm familiar with, so Charlie is a friend of mine, but he's also the founder of WIN, which is also a newer charter school in New York. And their school is founded upon a music curriculum that informs all of their processes. So there is music and learning with their classroom teachers, in addition to an intensive music curricula for all students. For our organization, we are looking for people who can support our music curriculum sometime in mid-year. So I believe, I'm not sure if it was Patrick or someone else who had shared earlier. Right now we're waiting for some more finite information from the governor and what budgets will look like, but it's still an interest. So I would keep plugging away and reaching out to schools that you're interested in, you are interested in, and opportunities may become available late August, early fall. It is really hard to find a great music teacher, especially voice. So please keep connected with schools and know that opportunities will be coming available soon.
Great. So I want to be mindful of people's time. I am going to, in the chat box, put a survey link from Career Services, just because we love to be able to get feedback about what's helpful, what you thought, if a format was good, and all that wonderful stuff. So please click that link before we end the Zoom chat. Otherwise, if students who are here, please use the chat box to express your gratitude towards these panelists. This is a volunteer thing to just be able to help, and it truly makes a difference. So panelists, thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I wish you all well as things unfold and transition with the world. And again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.